So there are different ways in which you can approach mindfulness. But the ultimate objective is to break the regular pattern of the mind. That is the objective of mindfulness as a technique. Of course, why you're doing it, there is a bigger purpose, there is a grander purpose. Because just behind the veil of thoughts hides everything you're looking for. Your thought process is so continuous, so thick, so real that you see nothing beyond it. Your life is governed by thoughts. The boundary of your being is your thoughts. So if a thought tells you this is who you are, you have to accept it. There's no arguing with it because you don't know that there is something beyond the thoughts. So the purpose of any mindfulness technique is to first observe this thought process that is happening all the time without any break, and see if you can stop it. Although it may seem an impossible task, how do I stop a chain of thoughts? How do I interfere with my own thought process? It is my thought process. I am thinking, so I'm deeply invested in it. If I had no interest in thinking about something, why would I think about it? So the problem or the difficulty in trying to be mindful is, in a way, you have to contradict yourself. You have to contradict your own desires. You have to contradict your own thought process. And that can only happen when you develop a sense of skepticism towards your thoughts. Not blindly accept and trust everything you're seeing. In that moment, your mind will always make you, or it'll try to convince you that this is very important. This thought process will either make or break you. In reality, it could just be humming a song. But it takes it so seriously that it wants you to engage with it. It wants you to listen to that song. Although you can give it a simple instruction, not now. I want to be quiet. The mind will not listen. The mind only understands how to grab your attention. And whatever it is engaged in that moment, it wants to continue to be doing the same thing. It wants to just be in that mechanical routine. It has a certain rhythm, certain pace of doing things, certain pattern of doing things. More than anything else, mind is a pattern. The content might change, but if you closely observe the mind, the pace at which the mind moves in different situations, the way it moves, the rhythm at which it moves is directly connected to your emotions. When you're angry, when you're frustrated, your thoughts move fast. In fact, anger is a response that happens when your mind is moving fast. If your mind is moving slow, you can have angry thoughts, but it would never come out as anger. The entire quality of that anger would be different. The thought process is same. What has changed? The pace has changed. So you can use this quality of the mind and you can trick the mind into altering its states. You can use a mindfulness technique of slowing down and sometimes even stopping for no reason, just for the sake of slowing down, just for the sake of stopping. If you're able to do it, your mind gets confused. The pattern is broken. In fact, in psychological terms, it is called pattern interrupt. Psychologists use it all the time. Your mind is stuck in a pattern. He has to somehow bring you back from there. What is the definition of madness? What is the definition of insanity? You're stuck in a loop that you're unable to get out of. That's what madness is. If you're able to step out of it at will, consciously, if you're able to get in and out of the loop, then that is called life. Madness is when you have no control over how long you want to be stuck in that loop and how deep you want to go. The mind at all times is in some state of madness. Even when it's appearing to be perfectly sane, even when it seems to be at its most lucid state, there is an underlying madness to the mind because there is unconsciousness at the depths of the mind. A thought process has started and mechanically it is following through that thought process. This happens not only when you are deeply engaged in thoughts, it happens all the time. Mind never stops when it actually should stop. Unless you make a conscious effort to stop it, it just keeps on going. Even simple activities. You've thought about something, you wanted to accomplish something. The instruction was given, and then you start performing the action. And once the action is complete, the mind should stop. But more often than not, it doesn't stop. It just continues in the same pattern. Because mind is movement. Mind is momentum. And unconsciousness is the energy that drives the mind. So mind will not understand the language of slow down. It will add it to its vocabulary. Slow down. That's it. It will just add it as another phrase. Stop. Okay, stop. So what? If you tell the mind to stop, after a while, it'll repeat a sentence and then it'll say stop and then it'll continue the sentence. That's the nature of the mind. Mind does not understand stop literally. What is the meaning of stop? Because for the mind, everything is thoughts. Even stopping is a thought. Even slowing down is a thought. And this is what happens when we are angry, when we are frustrated, when we are stressed and disturbed. We try to have conversation with the mind. We try to control it by diverting its attention, by giving it different instructions. But because it is in that momentum, because it is in that loop, whatever you add to it, it turns it into the same emotion. That's why it does not matter what the contents of your thoughts are when you're angry. Whatever you add to that moment becomes anger. When you are sad, when you're depressed, positive thoughts don't mean anything. And that is why all this philosophizing about think positively, always have nice positive thoughts in your mind never works, because when the mind is in a certain loop, in an emotional loop, it takes anything and everything that's available and turns it into that emotion. This is where we fail to understand the real nature of the mind. Mind is not just a collection of thoughts, it is a collection of emotions. It has its own momentum, it has its own movement, it has its own pattern. So instead of trying to have a conversation with the mind, you can use a technique to abruptly stop it. So, one way to do it is, for no reason, try to slow down your thought patterns. Make a conscious effort to think slowly. You don't have to change what you're thinking, you don't have to alter your thought process because you're deeply invested in those thoughts and you don't want to let go of them. That is the challenge, right? If I were to tell you, just stop thinking, what is the difficulty? Just stop thinking. Well, the difficulty is these thoughts are deeply connected to what you're doing in the moment and what you want to be doing, and they're already in a set pattern. That's why you cannot simply instruct your mind or instruct your thoughts, stop. It's not going to stop. But you can slow it down. Yes, continue to think. You have to trick the mind into believing that you are allowing it to do what it wants to do so that it doesn't completely reject your new method. But at the same time, you are artfully dealing with the mind. Even without the awareness of the mind, you are slowly taking away its power. You're slowly taking away its control. Because the mind doesn't know what you know. It doesn't know that it is just a blind pattern. The mind thinks that it is fully autonomous. It has ability to think and judge and all that, which is all fine. But it does not understand that by slowing it down over a period of time, you can gain the control back from the mind. So when you try to slow it down, it won't resist much. As opposed to trying to change the thought process or suddenly stopping it. Slowing down has always worked. That is why it's one of the most important mindfulness techniques.